I just want to welcome everyone to this webinar. It'll be about 45 minutes of us talking about summer planning and, in particular, last chance, sort of a lot of people are scrambling to figure out what they can do with their summer. And it's very typical. And so we're here to sort of help you think that through. This is a special webinar for the USA fencing community. Um, we love fencers, worked with a lot of fencers over the years, and are proud sponsors of USA Fencing. So, we're excited to talk to you today. I'm being joined by Alyse and Teo, um, and we'll just introduce ourselves. So, just I'll start and then pass the torch. So I mentioned I'm a founder of Spike Lab and Snowday, but I'll focus on Spike Lab a bit. Taya, maybe you could talk about Snowday. But I've been working for over 10 years with high schoolers to help them find and launch passion projects, or what we call spikes. And so we're working with students all over the world, helping them sort of do the self-directed independent projects, which I'll talk about more later. Kind of invented this idea of one-on-one coaching as a space. And, there are lots of, I didn't invent that, but as a company, as a formalized professional service, and excited to share some of our tips and tricks that have worked over the years. So that's a little bit about me. I'm based in New York City. I have three kids and just passionate about education and particularly high school education and extracurriculars, which includes summer programs and summer planning. Teo?
Hey everyone, I'm Teo. I'm also based here in New York City. I've been working with Lloyd for a while now. I'm an independent counselor and I work in the college admissions space, particularly for students who are targeting like highly selective, or as many people call them, highly rejective colleges like Ivy plus schools. That's really my area of expertise. I'm also an advisor at Snowday where I help to support the development of the platform and building it out, making sure that there are great programs on there and that it's serving students and parents and counselors alike. I'll be giving a little bit of a demo of Snowday later, talking about like how I use it personally in my work and how you as students or parents who are on here now can use that to just help find good programs. And pass it on to you, Elise.
Thanks, Teo. Hi, everybody. My name's Alyse Graham, and I'm here in Washington, D.C. I am a former teacher from San Francisco Unified School District, and now living here in D.C. and having graduated three of my own young adults through high school, one out into the world, and two still in college. I got involved with Snow Day because it solves the problem that we just experienced firsthand in my family and with students that I've worked with, that it's really hard to know about and find quality opportunities that are a good fit for a particular student. So you'll, as Teo mentioned, you'll see a demo of that. But it also, the same concerns kind of led me to found this project called 8 GreatYears, which is the 4 years of high school and the 4 years of college, and really reclaiming that as a critical developmental path for students, that is not just geared towards 4 years of trying to get into college and 4 years of trying to get a job, but really more of an arc of going from child to adult and figuring out who you are, what you're interested in, and how that forms a self that is both, meaningful and interesting to the person, and then also secondarily to colleges, to peers, to the kind of endeavors that kids grow into as they go through that path. So, really happy to be here with you.
Fantastic. So just some housekeeping. Feel free to um, in the chat to ask questions. Feel free to use the Q&A, but chat is often easier, I find. And
And
yeah, go ahead.
hey, Lloyd, I'm sorry. I'm not sure that everybody can see that. I'm not sure that theirs can be seen other than to us in the chat. So maybe as we go forward, you can just take a look at that, or we could, I think they can see the Q&A, so it might make sense to switch, but you can look at that in a minute.
Okay, whatever you can see, use it. Sometimes for the panelists, we don't see the same thing. So we'll be checking and answering questions as needed. So the first thing you just met us, we'd love to meet you and get to know a little bit about you in sort of a Zoom-ish way by doing a poll. And also in the chat, if you could share the grade that your child's in and where you're from. It's just kind of nice to know who we're meeting with. And in particular, this poll, which I'll put up on your screen in just a moment, is this question. Just to kind of understand what's on your mind, what's kind of a limiting factor or one of the main factors that's driving your summer plans. Just good to know that as we talk through this. So let me launch this, and you should see the poll, and hopefully you can answer it, and we'll see what you all are thinking about.
And while you're reading and thinking about that, somebody asked in the chat whether this will be recorded to watch again later, and it will be. And it is being recorded, I should say right now.
Okay. Thanks everyone. So end poll. And all right, so we have a lot with athletic competition schedule, which is not surprising with fencing and a little bit of not sure what they're interested in yet, budget financial issues. Okay, wonderful. Oh, I didn't share the results. There we go. Hopefully you can see it now.
Mhm.
That's super helpful. All right, great. So moving along, tonight's goal is, as you know, but it's nice to frame the webinar. We want you all to go into the summer and have confidence and have the tools to be able to really have high impact summers. And so, I believe deeply in, so I think summer is an amazing time for high schoolers, for young adults they don't have like the obligations of school, so you can really go out there and pursue what you love. And it's just an incredible time that, as we all know as adults, you don't really have. It's a special time, and it's really important to take full advantage of that. I can't tell you how many high schoolers don't take full advantage. And it's important to be strategic about it and therefore to know all your options and how the professionals like us think about it and are sort of paid to advise people on it. So that's what we're going to do for you today. It's definitely not too late. Obviously, there are options at this point in the year that are not available to you anymore, but there are plenty that are. So we will talk through those today. Alyse?
Yes, so we're going to start out by talking about two things. One, what does it mean to say, what is a high impact summer? And then we'll talk about what kind of opportunities are still out there. And Lloyd, before you go to the next slide, one thing I want to say about a high impact summer is it's not what a lot of parents and especially students think it is. A lot of students and parents think high impact means impact on an application, something that I can do to show a college something. And that is really putting the cart before the horse because if you spend any time talking to college admissions officers, what they will tell you is they are looking for authentic markers of engagement and stories that make sense to the complete picture of the student that they're seeing. And so what we want for our kids, what all great educators, whether they're in high school or college, want for kids is that they are really finding their strengths and interests, developing them, figuring out what they're not interested in, and moving on from there. So, when we talk about what a high impact summer is, we're going to talk about sort of five criteria. And Lloyd, if you want to advance the next slide, we can talk about that. But I wanted to wait because I really wanted to land that point that, and you can see number two, college strategy is a part of this, but it really is the cart leading the horse if you talk about the reason to do something for the summer is for an application. It just doesn't tend to work out very well if you approach it that way. So, the most important place to start is that this is an incredible opportunity to advance the growth of your student, for them to be exploratory, deepening, skill building, to also be probing what they like, what they don't like, sort of seeing what aligns with their interests and what doesn't align with their interests as they go. Sometimes it's a ground for proving, like if you do a competition, as the fencing community is aware of. Um, so it's really a chance for students to start kind of pushing forward on that path of who they are becoming. And it's a real path with, some twists and turns. But the most important thing is about them developing their authentic sense of self, because that is what is going to put them in the right college for them. That is what's going to enable them to tell an authentic story about who they are and why they want to go to this college and why this college should want them. Um, it also, if you have that lens on it being developmental and authentic to the student, it's going to flow naturally into your college strategy. So, as this slide says, selectivity matters. If you are a family that and a student that is really interested in a highly selective college experience, then there are certain things you're going to want to answer about yourself, and you may want to do that over the summer. One great example is if you talk to almost any college counselor these days, they'll tell you that kids aren't reading books anymore. And yet, if you want to go to Columbia and take advantage of their core curriculum, or you want to go to Yale, or you want to, some of these big name schools, they really care about kids who are intellectually engaged, and that means reading books. So there are some great books programs, in the summer that you can do to sort of test whether you are the kind of student for whom that lights your fire. Is this selective, prestigious path for you? And if it is, you're really demonstrating it by how you react to that experience, how you talk about it. So it matters, but also the alignment to who your student is matters, and also how you demonstrate interest in the college, which you can do through taking programs at certain colleges and showing them your particular interest. The third criteria is, of course, matching your real world constraints. And we'll talk a lot more about this in a little while, but they're the really big ones that are obvious to any family. Do the dates work? Does the budget work for your family? Does it work with your other family plans and needs? Are you eligible for the program? Um, the fourth thing is that I keep saying program, but what I really mean is experience. Does the experience produce clear outputs? Often it's great if it's a demonstrable artifact, if it could be like a research paper, a project, a result. Not all experiences offer that. And so what's really important is that the result is something that your student reflects on and can articulate to you and articulate to a teacher, to a counselor, and ultimately in an application to say, this is what I learned from this experience about the subject matter, about myself, about where I want to go with it. And then the last thing is, of course, a summer should be fun. These kids work hard in competition, they work hard in school, and summer is really that time for that cycle in the brain to reset, relax, and kind of, get ready for the next jump in learning. So keep that in mind. It should be something that is really authentically exciting to your student. Um, okay.
Alyse,
So,
can I just jump in and add? I thought that was
please,
really
yeah.
well summarized. The one thing I love to emphasize, which you've touched on, I just want to emphasize it more, is what from a college strategy perspective, which is one dimension of all this, um, is what I call story student fit, especially this late in the planning when there aren't a lot of selective things, which we'll get into, but um, the story that you're telling colleges, which hopefully is aligned with your authentic, the authentic piece that Elise was talking about, is really critical. And the summer is a time to do something that's aligned with that. So usually you talk about, things that you're passionate about and show that curiosity around. And then, but if you're not doing it in your free time, when you have free time, which is the summer, um, there isn't, it's lost opportunity when it comes to having a really strong story when you're applying to college. So really thinking about that this late in the summer planning cycle is, if you find creative ways to just really focus in on the things that you do care about or that you think you care about, that's a really good way to stay focused when there's so many options. Because today you're going to hear all these different options. It's going to be like a little dizzying. It probably already is. Um, But if you can just focus on your story, that helps scope things down.
So, there is this whole landscape of summer opportunities and experiences for high schoolers. And, the sort of traditional way of thinking is there are kind of summer programs where you might go to a pre-college program. Like I mentioned, Columbia, you might go sign up for one of their classes for summer, maybe live in the dorm and have that experience. Or you could like get a job lifeguarding or, working at a retail store. The fact is that the landscape is much broader than that. And even within the pre-college program or the sort of summer program world, there are so many different flavors and things you can do. There are the sort of more traditional academic classes where you are deepening your interests and enriching an area that you're already interested in and that you probably will be telling a college that you're interested in. So if that's science, if that's biology, well, then maybe you're taking a summer class on bioengineering. So you can take biology in high school, but most high schools don't offer something that is much more of like a college level course. So you could have that academic focus. You could have a travel focus, and that travel focus could have different outcomes. You could be interested in language learning, language immersion, cultural exchange. You could also be interested in travel for outdoor leadership and adventure. You could, going back to the academic realm, you could be interested more in research than in studying a sort of general content discipline, but in actually what the discipline of research is. So within that, and that's just the programs. Then there are experiences that are things like civic and volunteer opportunities. Teo's going to talk a little bit more about these later, but just examples like working on a local teen council for your library. Those are fantastic. Volunteering at the local botanical garden, the art museum. I mean, depending on what your interests are. Lots and lots of ways for that to show up, and even more when we get talking about internships, self-directed opportunities, um, and others. And just a word about the courses also fit into like a bunch of different categories. So one of the things that I find most exciting about this work is just the incredible variety of things that are available to high schoolers that they cannot get within the doors of their schoolhouse. You cannot take the future of the space economy at the at any high school in America that I know of, but that is, I happen to know a program that's being offered in the pre-college program at Columbia this summer, and I want to take it. So there, you can take niche classes like day trading, things that you might say you want to do in college. You want to be in finance, you want to be in engineering, you want to check out neuroscience, but you don't really know what those are, as part of a regular high school curriculum. So really looking into those can be very exciting to students and really broadening. There's some skill-based ones, like there are a lot of AI classes, a lot of there are, sort of pre-med hands-on. Like if you think you might want to be pre-med in college, you can do some like med simulation lab type things to get that experience, since you can't actually, work with actual patients in high school. But anyway, just a whole world of different programs. We really want you all to be aware of the broad scope, because the limit is not on what's out there. The limit is just on your child's imagination, your ability to elicit from them things they want to try, why they want to try it, what are they excited about, and what are they going to have fun doing. I'm going to toss it to Teo now.
Yeah, so this is just really a visual to help you kind of segment these types of programs, particularly the sign up programs, the ones that you either apply for or that you register for, and we'll talk about the alternative to those in a little bit. But there's a million programs out there, as Alyse has really given a good sense of. We find that they tend to fall into these four buckets, not perfectly every time. There's some that defy these a little bit, but for the most part, they're these sections. So you have these free programs that are more selected. These are often nationally run programs or internationally even, where students are applying from all over the country or all over the world. And often are like just highly, highly, highly selective. Some of those programs are actually more selective than the colleges themselves. Like RSI is the Research Science Institute, which is run out of MIT. It's more selective than MIT. So if you get into RSI, it's a very good signal for your strength as a candidate and a very good signal to colleges that you later on might apply to. But a lot of times these are programs that they will very clearly say on their website, like the number of applicants they get or the number of people that they accept. And those are usually best as kind of a capstone experience for high school. Like usually those free, highly selective programs should be reserved for the summer before senior year, both because that's the most consequential summer to colleges, but also because chances are you're not going to get into them prior to that, in all likelihood. Like some of them even only allow rising seniors to apply for those. You then have these more selective paid programs. There aren't that many of them that fall into this bucket. A lot of paid programs are less selective just because they get fewer applicants as a result of costing more. But the more selective paid programs, what they generally have in common is that they give pretty generous financial aid. Like summer science program is a very well reputed program that is known to give often full aid to students. And so for many students, it will be free or near free. It's only expensive for students who can afford to pay it. Yale Young Global Scholars, not quite as generous with aid, but also still has a similar reputation, which means that more students are able to apply and it gets more selective. Then you have these free less selective programs. And those programs tend to be more local or regional. So the two examples that I have here are both programs here in New York that I'm familiar with, the New York Hall of Science, which is actually still open for applications, I think, for another day or two, and Wave Hill, which is in the Bronx and runs a couple of different local programs for teenagers. These sorts of programs are offered across the country and usually people just don't know about them because they're local institutions as opposed to like big national institutions, and they're not residential. And so typically not as many students are applying to them, and they end up being just not quite as competitive. So I often encourage looking for those in your own neck of the woods. Many times they will be at like local museums or historical societies or botanical gardens or zoos or potentially local colleges, often like the regional state universities or community colleges, or like city councils, art museums. There's just a wide range of institutions that will offer these types of programs. We have a lot of those captured on Snowday, which I'll share in just a minute. But if you can't find them there, I often recommend just like looking around, like what are the institutions that you love, that you frequent, and just see, hey, do they offer any sort of teenage programs? And more often than not, the answer is yes. So those are those free, less selective programs generally. And then the paid, less selective programs are is kind of the largest bucket here. And that's generally these pre-college programs, these immersion programs. They're often called derogatorily pay to play, which is a signal that they are not very selective, that anybody who can pay for them is able to do them. But that doesn't mean that they aren't really valuable experiences. As Alyse has already gotten into, it gives you the opportunity to go into these more niche areas and to explore areas that you just might never get to over the course of high school, and to develop a lot more expertise and to see like what you like and what you don't like, which can be really valuable as well. I had an experience going into my senior year where I took one of these pre-college programs at Brown, which was a political course, and it was a really great experience. I loved it, and it taught me two really important things for me at that stage in high school. One was that I did not want to go to Brown, which was valuable because prior to that it had been my first choice. And number two was that I did not want to go into politics, which was also really important because prior to that, that was what I was pretty sure that I wanted to do with my life. And so this was just a 3 week program, but in 3 weeks, it saved a lot of trouble for me. So these types of programs can be just really valuable learning experiences, particularly for younger students. I often recommend these for my students who are in ninth grade or who are in 10th grade. Chances are they're not going to end up becoming part of the college application because you can only fit 10 activities in the application, and you don't want to use it on one of these programs that was from like a while ago. But That said, it's just a great opportunity to explore, and if it fits really well with the story and what you're interested in, then it could potentially actually fit into the college application, as both Lloyd and Alyse have hinted at. Not to mention, there are colleges that track demonstrated interest, and these programs can actually, at a college, can signal to that college that you are interested in it, but only for a selection of colleges. And we have a list actually on Snowday that I curated of just all of the colleges that track demonstrated interest in the programs that they offer. So we can send that out in a follow-up. Um, but next slide, please. So we're a little late in. Oh, this is before I jump into that. So outside of these curated programs, where it's like sign up or and you register or you apply, there are a lot of other ways to spend the summer by kind of doing your own thing. And some of those are actually sometimes the best options. And we'll talk about these a little bit more in the coming slides. But unlisted internships, that means outside of internship programs. These are internships you source yourself through your network. Self-directed experiences, Lloyd's going to be touching on that later. Volunteering, this is just sort of an obvious one that a lot of people do, but it can just be a great way to give back to the community and also to develop an interest. Like if you want to go into pre-med, volunteering at a hospital, summer jobs. A lot of people overlook summer jobs, and especially for fencers, it can be hard just because you have a really busy schedule and you might not be able to fit like shift work into that schedule. But I find summer jobs can be really valuable, and a lot of my students who are athletes will often just find summer jobs doing what they love. So one of my students who's a really talented tennis player spends about 3 weeks every summer as a tennis coach. So like those can just be a great opportunity to show real responsibility, and they signal to the colleges that you're somebody who isn't afraid to roll up your sleeves and do work, and that like a job, however menial, isn't beneath you. Next
And
slide. Oh, sorry,
Theo, can I
Elise.
add? No, I was just going to add one more thing on this one, and that is, for the right student, setting a personal goal can also be a great summer activity. Something that you already know you're into. Let's say you're really into reading, or you're into, swimming and running, in addition to being a fencer, let's say. Maybe you want to do a triathlon. Like it can be really valuable if you have a more unstructured summer and you're trying to put some of these things together, and you're bored, you're worried about being sort of like utilized. It's a great way to explore what you're really interested in and learn about yourself, and ends up being something that will fit into your application in lots of ways, either as an example of a way you deepened an existing interest, or just showing that you have initiative and the ability to track something. But I have known several students who have done that, particularly during COVID when there was just so much unstructured time, and they found it really valuable, and they had really interesting stories to tell about what it meant to them. So.
I
Yeah,
know we
absolutely.
want to keep going, but I just want to emphasize how great a point that is. It really, and I'm very biased for self-directed summers, as I think you'll all hear, but picking a goal, like students are so programmed, they're so pushed in all these directions of what they have to do. Giving them an opportunity to just kind of think about like, what are you really excited about? What are important goals for you? And having that like space to like really let them decide and then make it concrete with goals. It's not just like, oh, do anything. It's a serious exercise of self-reflection. What do I care about? And then framing that in the form of a goal. And then you think about, well, how do I achieve that goal? And there's so many ways. There are YouTube videos. There's, lots of different way, going out talking to experts on your own, reading books, and it can really come together in a really magical way often. So anyway, Teo.
Yeah, so at this point in time, we're obviously in late April. Not that many opportunities are still available. There still are some out there. These selective free programs, for the most part, are past their deadlines. You really need to aim for those as early as November. There are some deadlines. I know that sounds crazy, but many of these programs, because they get so many applicants, they just need a lot of time to review those applications. So some deadlines are November, December. Most of them are January, February when it comes to these selective programs. The few that are still open are typically going to be the more local, regional ones, which can still sometimes be selective. The selective paid programs, likewise, it's a very similar deal. Those tend to close open, or sorry, close early. Some of them are still open, but and some will be on like wait lists because especially with those paid programs, they will sometimes not get the level of yield that they might get if they were a free program, just because it might be outside of people's budgets. And so sometimes you'll find those programs where they might be closed, but there could just be a waiting list or something like that that you can sign up for. And then these other things are still pretty open. Like a lot of pre-college programs are still available. A lot of just kind of random courses that you can take are still available as well. And so I'll talk actually now about using Snowday to find some of these just real quick, and I'll also give a very brief demo about how to use it for thinking about next year for families who might be already kind of planning ahead. I know we have some parents of younger kids here, so you're very early to the process at this point. So hopefully some of this can help you as you think about it as well. Um, let's see, I'm going to replace that share. Okay, everyone able to see my screen now? Um, so this is Snowday. It's just snow.day. You can go on your browser, you can go on your phone. No app required in order to access it. No login required in order to access it. You just go to the website and you're there. For thinking about deadlines, the best thing to go do is just go right down to this module right on the home screen, upcoming deadlines, and you can click through it to see the sort of things that are coming up. You can hit view all, and then you're going to get actually just a filtered list of all the upcoming deadlines. I believe it's within a month. And you can see there's over 400 that actually are still open with those deadlines coming up. Although sometimes the deadlines might be like, rolling like in this case, and those sometimes can fill up early, so you'll have to like double check on the websites in general, because the earlier you come to this process, the better your opportunities. So you can browse through and see what has upcoming deadlines. You can see there's a lot of options for filtering here, and I'll talk about that in a minute with the more general search. But a couple of very quick shorthands to help you. The hats, the like graduation caps are programs specifically. The cups are trophies for competitions. The money bag is a financial accessibility. So real quick shorthand is just like A is free, A plus is usually paid, and then it goes down from there. B is usually like fairly average costs. So that just gives you a very quick indicator of what that's going to cost you. And then you'll see these badges, which are the expert ratings, which we did a survey of dozens of highly experienced independent counselors to get their input on what the programs were that had just the strongest reputation. This does not mean that those are the only great programs out there, but just so you know, any program that has the most recommended badge is a program that is the top 1% of ratings from counselors, and the highly recommended is the top 10% of ratings from counselors. But again, there's many great programs out there that do not have the badge, but it can just be a good shorthand for quickly finding the ones that you know are like high trust, highly recommended from counselors. And you can filter by those if you only want to see those to just get a quick indicator of them. Now, for thinking about next year and for thinking about just general searches, going back to the homepage, I just want to very quickly take you through a search process. So, say for instance, you wanted writing programs. You would just search by the interest. You would find writing programs here. You'll notice a sort is already applying the deadline because that's what I was prioritizing before, but you can adjust it to say, you know what, I really just want to find like the most relevant ones. And so it's going to use the semantic search to find what is the most relevant to just the search of writing. And then from there, you can filter to figure out the ones that feel like the best fit for you. So you might say, you know what, I really only want the ones that are most trusted. I'm going to sort by expert choice. I only want programs. I don't want any competitions right now. I'm only looking for summer, so I'm going to filter by that. You know what? I don't really want any online programs. I only want in person, so I'm going to filter by that. We're getting to two results because there's another filter on right now. Wait, let me reset that. Um, because I still have the deadline and filter on by mistake. Why is Sorry, why is the deadline filter still on? For some reason, we're not getting, okay, here we go. So now we're getting ones that have future deadlines. These are predicting based on the typical deadlines, when these ones would be. And then for ones that have just passed, it says deadlines passed. But anyway, you get a sense of just all these different programs that are out there. You can click into them, you can watch videos, you can just get a sense of what the program is, as well as eligibility, what the typical applications are, what's required for the applications, when it happens, which I know is very important for trying to balance that around a fencing schedule. And you can also see what is highly selective, and the financial accessibility. Um, so anyway, that's just a very quick run through of the platform. You'll see feature opportunities, discounts here. You can also find expert lists that are curated by independent counselors. So if there's specific areas that are of interest, you can kind of see it and figure out like what the trusted voices in this space are recommending.
Hey, Teo,
Yeah.
before we leave the demo, just I was thinking because we have a community of people here who that do have a lot of competition date constraints, maybe just showing them the filter for your available dates. That might also be useful.
Yeah, I can pull it up
And
quickly. I, yeah, down here you can filter by months or by specific dates. It's just one range, but say for instance, like, okay, you're going to be in training camps for all of July, you're going to be back a little bit in August or something like that. You might be able to say, like, okay, I want to do it between the 2nd and between the 17th and kind of in that range. And it will go through and filter by the ones that are happening in those dates typically. And you will get ones that happen like throughout the year as well for some of those, but as well as ones where it's like flexible dates. But it will allow you to filter down to ones that you know are gonna work for your range.
And the only other thing I'd add is just the filtering by location, because if you're looking for an in-person program, you're most often going to want to look for programs that are where you live. One of our favorite tips and tricks at Snowday, and especially because you all are part of a big national, maybe even, fencing community, is Lloyd's going to talk more about sort of creating your own adventures over the summer. But one of my favorites is creating an adventure with a friend or an aunt or a godparent in another city, and a city that happens to have great summer opportunities. So you can use that location filter to filter by where you live or where you know somebody where your student could spend a week. And maybe help take care of the your friends' plants and also go to camp during the day. So anyway, there's just lots of ways to take advantage of the really rich landscape of opportunities.
Um, and then real quick, the various types of self-directed things that you can do, just to touch on these, because these often fit best with a competitive athletic schedule. Unlisted internships, what we mean by that is just not internships that are not part of a formal internship program. We'll talk about that in a second. Do-it-yourself job shadow, and we'll expand on in a second as well as independent projects. These are three areas that can be a productive way to spend the summer. Unlisted internships. This is something that you'd want to start on now if you haven't already, if it's something you want to do. The best way to get these is typically cold emails or warm introductions through your network and just reaching out and trying to find uh, any opportunity that you can. This is often a very laborious, time-consuming, and rejection-heavy process. My students will very typically send like 50, 60, 70, 100 emails. It's a very common thing that they will have to do, and it teaches them persistence. It teaches them to cope with rejection, and it's just a valuable life skill because that's what you need to do when you're applying to jobs in the adult world. So unlisted internships, this can usually it's better to focus based on interest as opposed to just based on prestige. You don't want to do just insert random internship here. You want to find something that is connected to the niche that you want to explore further, or like the mission or purpose that you have adopted in the world. You really want to make sure that you're doing real work also as part of this. Like you don't want to just be fetching coffee and stapling. You want to hopefully be able to take on an independent project. And with this outreach process, if you're able to show your initiative and your strengths as a student and somebody who kind of is a self-starter, you can find great opportunities. So we'll send out a guide in the chat that will cover this, which talks through this process. And yeah, it's something that I would suggest using as a framework for really like later in high school. Like I saw some people have eighth graders or younger. It's too early for an internship. Generally, you want to be above 16 for this process, just because of the legality. But we'll send out that guide in the chat so that you have it. Job shadowing is something you can do a little bit earlier. What I mean by this is just like informational interviews, talking to real people in the workforce to learn a bit more about their careers. Ideally, this is not just a Zoom call. This is something where you're going into their workspace, having a real conversation with them, and just getting a sense of what their work is like, if they're willing to have you, or at the very least, meeting them like in the lobby of their office to still have that conversation on site. One of my students got to actually shadow a surgeon that he reached out to, who during surgery, and like got to watch from the viewing, whatever it is, the viewing window where he could watch this surgery. He thought he wanted to be a surgeon. And that experience made him feel like, yeah, like maybe he still wants to be that, which is a really valuable experience for somebody who is like this interested in this thing that otherwise is very nebulous and disconnected from like a person's real experience. Like if I had done that, I probably would have fainted. When he did that, he was like, "Oh, this is so cool! I really want to do this." And we're just wired differently as humans. But those types of experiences can be really, really valuable. One of my students put together a weeks long like job shadowing combination where she talked to 12 different people over the course of just 5 days. So she was just hopping all over the city having these different conversations, and it just opened her eyes to like what careers were possible, and what directions she wanted to pursue. And one of the people she met with was a tech product manager, and she ended up that she's now like working at Apple in product management. And like 6 years later from that, like that conversation is what made her realize that was even possible. So this can be a great system for setting you on your path, figuring out like what you are interested in, or what you're not interested in, and a great use of time during the summer.
Teo, one other thing, just another version of this is DIY study trips is what I call it, because like, I went to Stanford Business School and we did these study trips where every like spring and winter break you'd go like travel somewhere. Like I went to like China and you meet with all the tech people or all the energy people, and it's very industry focused. But I've had lots of students do that on their own, like on their own, and it takes, some organizing. But you can, like Elise said, you can go stay with an aunt, uncle in a city, set up 10 meetings with people in a space that you're interested in, and it's a lot sometimes easier than getting an internship, and it shows a lot of initiative, and you get to talk to different people, get tours of where they work, understand what they do. So that's another sort of thing you can do. Um, Teo, should I just jump in and all right,
Yep.
awesome. So the last path here, independent project, it's where my heart lives. Because of the work I do with Spike Lab. Um, maybe not, I shouldn't say most impactful way, but sometimes the most impactful way to use your summer is to build out a project. And projects can take lots of different forms. The important thing is that it's aligned to you, the student, what you really care about, what's meaningful to you, what's purposeful to you. And often that means aligned to who you are and like your background, your identities. And so, focus on who you are that aligns with meaning, right? With purpose. not just what looks impressive. I really want to impart that. A lot of people will just say, "Oh, a project, I just got to figure out some cool thing. I'll do an AI project." Um, that can be a good experience, but it's much more powerful if it's personal and meaningful. It's also more powerful in the college application. So that's the thing that a lot of people miss when they think about independent projects. There can be lots of different independent project just examples to make it less abstract. People will do apps, people will do start nonprofits, they'll do creative ones like write a book or join with friends and do and write a book together or put together a bunch of poetry or do a uh, like organize events. We had a student one over a summer put together a pre-med, pre-professional sort of medical conference for high schoolers where it's kind of like my what I talked about earlier. Instead of just you doing a study trip, you put together a conference and invite a lot of people. So there are lots of different versions. People have done really impressive fundraisers, put together educational initiatives, obviously businesses, um, and on and on. We've had students like try to break world records in different things, which relates to our conversation earlier about setting goals. Um, so the question we always get is, how do I get started? And I don't know where I would start, right? So I don't know like what to do. And so just some tips on that if this is of interest to you. Obviously, you can work with Spike Lab. There are other groups that do this professionally that sort of put down the railroad tracks and make it go smoother. But you can do it yourself as well. And so the way to get started is there are lots of different ways, but don't just jump to brainstorming, which is step 4 here. Start with who am I, right? So I'm a student, I'm a fencer, I'm a baker, I'm an immigrant, I'm someone who, has had certain challenges in my life, things like that. And really lay those out. And then look at like what elements of those identities activate you. What are sort of the things that um, give you energy and you feel energy around, especially things that create tension or that have like emotions, again, flashpoints. You want to pursue things that you care about. And usually emotions are attached to things you care about. So it's just a thing to help you as you're going through that process. And then brainstorming concrete projects around those spike directions. So you start with directions, which are tied to who you are, and then brainstorm projects. And it's good to bring parents in, to bring other people in as you're brainstorming. Also, now AI tools are just incredible at brainstorming projects, and you get quantity, and then you converge in on the best ones, and then you research those. So that's kind of the really quick way to go about figuring it out. Um, Start now. So summer is a great time if this is of interest to do that version, that first version. Make it real through prototyping, piloting, but try not to like have this thing that takes a year. Um, have a plan, figure out what you can get out the door really quickly, which is very different from normal entrepreneurship, which, you can't launch a business or something real in a month, especially if you have like a fencing competition in the middle of that. And so it's a different process of trying to figure out how to get something out the door quickly. And then you can use the school year to build that out and you have a little more time. Um, so um, sort of summarizing like what makes a great idea, um, what makes something really impressive to others and great for you as a student, like transformational. It's that again, that piece of something personal, something tied to who you are. Um, and so you really have to start with who you are, what you care about, and then find the project. But when you think externally what is impressive, like from a college admissions perspective or beyond, there are a few things to keep in mind. One is impact. Are you gonna, how much impact does it have? Um, is it recognized? Do you get press? Do you get awards later? And the third is uniqueness. A lot of people forget like a really simple, easy idea that's super unique and interesting is really impressive. So keep those in mind when you're if you're doing this. And so that comes to the end. We only have 7 minutes until the hour, so a little bit of time for questions. Hopefully, you all have some. So let's open it up, and I guess you can raise your hand, and we can let you speak. I think that's a more fun way, or you can just put it in chat. You all have been very quiet. I think it's the quietest webinar in terms of
Mhm.
questions.
Let's see. We got one that came in here. My son only has 1 week free this summer. Is it worth doing something like a pre-college program with that? Um, It depends on what the rest of the summer looks like. If it's a really jam-packed summer, I don't know that I would recommend just like jamming in another program. And in which case, something that is more relaxing and restful might be a better use of the time. However, I will say that a lot of the programs that are out there can still be really valuable even if they're 1 week. Like you can filter and you can find programs on Snowday that are just a single week long, and they're often just really good, like brief immersions into a subject that doesn't require a huge time commitment to do, but can still get you a lot of value out of that, even with just a week.
And I'll put a plug in. I'm one of the people who's submitted an expert list for Snow Day, and it's a best 1 week program. So it's not obviously the full universe, and there are a lot of really great ones out there. And as Teo said, you can use the filter to do that. But if you just want like a quick hit list to get some ideas, you can check that out in the list section.
We got a couple of other questions that just came in. Um, Does the place you do your summer internship matter? Um, it's a big question. I mean, it do absolutely does matter. I would say like the prestige of the place though matters a little less than the impact of the work that you're doing. Like if you do something that is really valuable and meaningful and you're actually contributing in like a great way, that's far more important than the like reputation of that place. Like one of my students this year did an internship at like a robotics company where he actually like built their like robotic prototype that they used to pitch to investors. And it was this tiny little scrappy startup that he found through his own research. And he's like, oh, they're doing work that is really exciting to me. And yeah, so he did this real impactful, significant work for this company that nobody has ever heard of before. But that like was really meaningful. And he ended up getting into Stanford and a couple of Ivy League schools and doing really well. So in that case, like the work that he was doing was far more important than the like status of the place that he entered. And so that would be my advice around that. I'd rather have a student do something meaningful and impactful than do something that is just like a name on a resume.
And just related to that, there was another question, Teo, about doing something at an Ivy League college versus doing something at your local school. Um, does it impact getting into the Ivy schools? I mean, one thing you should know is that none of the Ivy schools take demonstrated interest into account. So doing something at an Ivy League school is, if there's any help to your application, it is like the most marginal. It just shows that basically know where it is and went out of your way to take a course there. But so to what Teo was just saying, what's much more important is what your student, how they interacted with the experience. Did it excite them? Did they get really engaged because of whatever they did? Can they articulate what that is and how it relates to the other things they're doing, the AP class they took, the experience, volunteering, whatever the case may be? And that is the story that is going to be much more likely to get a college's attention.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I would also just add sometimes even the local college can be a better option because doing something at the Ivy League school can signal that you're somebody who chases prestige and who is like maybe only applying to the Ivies because of prestige versus doing stuff that is of genuine interest to you, which sometimes the local college might be better equipped for.
There's a question here just about what is the specific support that Spike Lab provides. I can obviously answer that. If you're interested in Spike Lab, you can go to our website, spikelab.com, and book a consultation meeting. It's a free meeting with me, and I can take you through it in more detail. But the short answer is that it's one-on-one coaching. So we pair you with a coach who has many years experience. All our coaches now have a lot of experience one-on-one coaching students through a process. It's a modular one-on-one coaching process where it starts, depending on where a student is, some students come in with ideas and most don't. So initially, it's helping coming up with an idea in an efficient, effective way, de-risking that process through prototyping, piloting, and it's a weekly cadence where students will meet over a long period of time, starting with 12 weeks to get that idea and get those initial pilots going. And then some students will go on their own, and some will continue with the coaching for a longer period of time. I think that's it. We're just about at time, and there are no more questions. If you have another question, please share it. But otherwise, I think I can say on behalf of Alyse and Teo, it was really fun to talk to you all, and we wish you all the best. Figuring out a great summer for your students, your children, and reach out to any of us if you're interested in any of our programs or need some more advice. Take care.
Thanks for joining us.